Welcome to Aleph Tech Talks. Today's session is based on the Zero Trust Security Model. I'm Uzma Sayed, your host and interviewer for this exciting series. Today, we have the pleasure of welcoming Mr. Taha Sajid, an esteemed author, trainer, and speaker specializing in 5G, blockchain, and cybersecurity. At Aleph Tech Talks, we are bridging the gap between industry experts and participants by fostering meaningful discussions and interactions. With the guidance of Microsoft MVPs like Mr. Taha Sajid, you can enhance your skills, stay ahead of the curve, and unlock new possibilities in your career. Let me give you a scenario for you to understand the kind of topic we are going to pick in this particular web series. So, take the example of a coffee shop, all right? Now, imagine you're sitting in a bustling coffee shop, enjoying your favorite beverage and catching up on some work. Suddenly, you notice a commotion at the counter. It turns out that the coffee shop's Wi Fi network has been compromised, and sensitive information like credit card details has been stolen by cyber criminals. This scenario raises several questions, like, for example, how did the attackers breach the coffee shop's network? What could have been done differently to prevent this incident? And most importantly, how can zero trust security help organizations protect themselves against such threats? Now that I have piqued your interest with these real life scenarios or questions, let's delve and dive right into the zero trust security model and explore the potentials that it holds. Thank you, Mr. Sajid, once again for joining us today and sharing your experience on zero trust security. Let's dive right into our discussion and uncover the key principles and strategies which zero trust security holds. Mr. Taha Sajid, would you
Thank
like to
you,
say
Uzma.
something?
Yeah, thank you, Uzma. Thank you for having me. Uh, that's quite a bit of introduction, and I really like the example that you have given for a coffee shop in it. It has reminded me of my coffee that I didn't had one yet. Okay, so to introduce myself briefly, I'm a principal security architect. I'm also a trainer and a speaker. I've been helping various, enterprises over the past, and also involved in standard uh, organizations as well. Uh, this topic is very interesting, and to give an overview and to set the stage first, I just want to take the scenario further from the coffee shop. So with zero trust, so in a normal traditional security setting, you can put a bodyguard or a security guard, I would say, at the outside of the gate of the coffee shop, and he's checking everybody that whether they have an ID card or not when they are entering the coffee shop, and when they are entering the coffee shop, when they are ordering their coffee, he has a menu card, or a waiter has a menu card which checks that whether you're not spoofing the attendees, or the people in the restaurants are not forging with their orders, and then when they are paying their bills, they're using right credit card, so that's some of the checks or that you can place inside the coffee shop. But with the in the context of zero trust, if I have to put it, for example, that anybody, whether if it's an employee of a coffee shop or if it's a regular customer, they have to go through the same procedure. So with zero trust, we're not segmenting or classifying that one versus another. Everybody has to follow the same rules, same guidelines, and you can do just enough what you are capable of. So, for example, the waiters cannot see what's there with the customers. Like, they cannot see the credit card information of the customers, for example, and the customers, once they are paying their bills, I mean, they have the security checks enabled. So you are putting the security checks into every hop in that coffee shop example. If you are following zero trust, you're not segmenting or classifying or treating somebody over another, like giving a preference over one another. And you are having from the communication that is taking place between the waiter and the customers, to how the data is being accessed for the customers, and the coffee shop. So whatever is there, whatever, and how the data is flowing across different hops, whoever is accessing, you are putting security controls in every of those aspects. That is was zero trust as compared to the traditional model. Just to give that example of it. Yeah, I hope you have I mean, you have understood the concept. Now we can
Yeah, I
start
mean,
your questions.
yeah, I think we gave the example, but you really took it ahead and, explained it in detail for us. Uh, let's get started with our first question, Mr. Taha.
Mhm. Mhm.
How does the zero trust differ from traditional security posture? Since you just mentioned a little bit about the traditional security,
Mhm.
models,
Mhm.
and what are the benefits?
Yeah. So with as I explained you earlier, with a traditional security model, you are just enforcing, or you are mainly enforcing the policies and the security controls at the perimeter level, which means that when the user is accessing, they should be checked with a firewall that whether the rules and policies are configured. So for example, if I'm talking about giving you an example of an IT network, the firewall may check the packets on layer 3, layer 4. It may not check it on the application layer. And then who is sending the request from which location, what is the context of the request, it is not checking that further. And then, for example, when the request enters from the firewall to access a network element A, you are only checking that if that user is allowed to access that network element A, but you're not checking what resources the user element A is accessing it, and whether he's allowed or not. So in the context of zero trust, if you shift from that perimeter security model into a more policy centric, I would say, which checks every user what request he's sending, whether he's allowed or not. If the network is being monitored by all the communication that has been happening, so you are shifting from the perimeter mindset into a more policy centric control to make sure that you are identifying all your resources, you are checking that what calls are being made to those resources, and you are in a way having different policy checkpoints, that whether a is accessing the user, or whether if it's a machine to machine communication, whatever is there, we should have a policy in force for each of those network elements. Yeah. So that is what zero trust is. And if you want to, talk about the benefits, it gives you more visibility. It gives you automation of your network in terms of you can enforce the policies across different elements. It gives you data governance, so you know that who is the data owner uh, for your assets, where your assets located, who is accessing it, and how you are tracking. So it also gives you the principle of tracking that who is accessing. So it's a complete suite of tools, uh, and which gives you better control over the network. That what the benefits are basically.
Great, great. I mean, personally, I really like the automation and the tracking metric here. I think that's really fascinating. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, true.
Okay, moving ahead, how does an enterprise qualify towards a zero trust model? And what are the fundamental tenets here?
Okay, so that's another important question. So we have seen that if you want to enforce zero trust, organizations adapt different methods of the strategies towards its implementation, and every strategy or implementation policy has their own set of rules. So there is no like a standard way of implementing zero trust. And with this in mind, now, if you will agree with me that in the conferences or in any of the startup solutions, they want to pitch zero trust in their product. So that because that is what the buzzword is, and you are trying to sell this word, by using those like zero trust words. But the important thing for enterprise to know, whatever strategy or architecture they are following, they have to check like main five fundamental, I would say the five tenets, the five pillars, that whether they are having a zero trust enforcement or not. Which is one is the identity of the users, whether they are machine users or human users. The second are the devices. What are the devices of the network, whether they are classified or not, or the third is the networking piece, that when you are accessing those devices, how the communication is being flowing from those devices. Then you go to the fourth pillar, which is the app or the workload. So inside the devices, there are some workloads which is being used to process the information. So that is what you want to protect for them. Then the last piece or the last uh, tenant I would say is the data. So if you are covering your identity, the devices, the networks, the app workloads, plus the data, and you are having enough security controls for all these network elements, then you are implementing zero trust. So now when it comes to the maturity model, how much the organization is classified, so you can map your security posture and the risk assessment of that security posture for all of these five pillars, then you'll see that where you're standing. So that's what the maturity model is. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thanks. That's great. Um, I have a little bit of a technical question for you here. So,
Okay.
what kind of a technical architecture can be used, and how can one use it? I mean, this question had to be there.
Yeah. So okay. So that's another important question. So what are the technical architecture of zero trust, and how do we implement it? So I, as explained you in my earlier response, that there are five, six or five main tenants. So now it's up to the enterprise or an organization to adapt security control to as per what they like, or what they risk appetite is. What are their resources? Basically, if you want to go to the identity mechanism, you have to have an authentication check enabled for the identity. The users, you have to know who are my users, how they're accessing it, what authentication authorization principles are enforced for my users. That's so. How do you enable it? You have to use an Active Directory or an Azure Active Directory to check them, that whether the users are defined, what are the policies for those users, and how they are being enforced. And you can use a single sign-on. You can use so you whatever password, like whatever identity and access management tools you are having inside your organization, you can use them to enforce some standard policies onto the users. Okay, so that that who is accessing, why they're accessing, and to which device they're accessing. Yeah. Okay, the second piece is in terms of the technical architecture. You can have different endpoint protection tools. Let's say I like the tool of CrowdStrike would have like the EDR agent, the endpoint and response detection agent, which checks that what the calls are coming into the network, what is being accessed, and whether those requests are legit or not. So you can use endpoint detection tools for that. For the inter device to device communication, for example, because you have to also protect the network. You can enforce TLS here, and how you enforce TLS, then it's up to you, that you use your own PKI server or you're using external PKI server. So that is how you can enforce the networking piece. You can enforce the control on the networking piece. And for the data part, you can use encryption at rest. You can include logging for your data resource. So that is how you can architect your network. But the important point to note is here is that you have to enforce visibility, you have to enforce automation, and you have to enforce governance. Yeah.
Right. So, which one would you say is better, Taha?
So there is no a single solution which is better. Uh, I would say every organization has their own way of architecting the security controls for zero trust. What I would say is that whatever you have to do a risk uh, based approach. Like for example, you have to identify that what are the risks for your assets. You have to do a threat modeling exercise to know that your assets. You need to protect your assets under like from which threats. for internal, external threat vectors, and then you have to classify the risk based on the impact and the probability of occurrence. The standard procedure, and then you have to see that what is the, like, for example, out of these like five pillars, what you have to protect first. For example, you might protect, so some organization can just enforce identity enforce mechanisms, uh, and they're more focused on the identity suite. Some some organization are more want to protect their application and the workload, so they deploy some EDR agents, on the app and the workload. So there is no like a standard way of doing it, but whatever you do, make sure that you are doing it based on your uh, risk assessment, and you should be controlling all those five network elements, not just one. Okay.
Great. Great. How about I change the direction of the question? I'm sure there would be a personal favorite. So, is there any zero trust framework that you like?
uh, to be honest, every framework has their own benefits, and it depends also on the industry, which industry is being applied and what are the compensating controls it has. So
If I
it
had
depends on
to
various
ask you to
factors.
pick
If I
one,
Yeah, so I like two models which I really like, or the solutions, I would say. One is the Microsoft model for zero trust. Why? Because it is giving a complete like suite of tools, and it is less like burdensome to implement and architect the solutions. You have you can achieve the visibility. You can enforce the policies across different workloads, and you can you can better handle the governance part as well. So that is why I like this Microsoft one. And the other solution is the Zscaler exchange solution, which is also gives the complete suite of zero trust solutions. And it is lightweight. You can easily onboard your network elements with their solution. So yeah, so these are the two main zero trust solution in the market that I would recommend. But having said that, when you just Google zero trust, you'll see every security organization is coming up with their own zero trust version, which is not like which is correct. Like, they have their own way of implementing, but make sure that they are being, I mean, their solution is following all the checkpoints. What I have just explained you. Yeah.
well, now I feel I shouldn't have asked the question because it kind of took away the suspense for the other questions we have, which are lined up. But anyway, I'll give a short break here for our audience and even for you, Taha. I'm sure you would be knowing this fact. I have a small fun fact here. Uh, So, one of the benefits of zero trust security is that it can reduce the cost of security breaches by up to 50%. I think that's but obvious with all the discussions that we've had. Also, a study by IBM found that the average cost of a data breach in 2020 was $3.86 million, but it was only $1.76 million for organizations that had adapted the zero trust security. So, kind of summing up with respect to whatever you said till now.
Yeah, true. And the reason, Usma, what I feel is the reason behind all this is that uh, you know, our approach to security, that this has always been an afterthought. We know this. We have been, discussing all these things that, when you came across an attack, then you think about, hey, I need to be more secure. Where are my cybersecurity team? So if you're working on a startup, you see there is a CTO, there is a CEO, obviously, and there is a CMO, all those C-level executives, but you don't see a CISO, there. So what I feel is that it should be something which is built in design. It should be part of the human nature or psychology, that you should think about that. If you are building a $1 million application, but if it's not secure, so there is no point of investing in that. So there's, yeah, this element which has to be in there. Yeah.
I think probably the last line that you said could be the tagline for zero trust model. There's no use if you're investing and putting up all of these things and not
Yeah,
implementing a model like that.
yeah, yeah.
Uh, Sure. So reiterating and touching on the points which you mentioned before, we have seen
Mm-hmm,
Microsoft and Zscaler implementation already.
mm-hmm,
Is there
mm-hmm.
any industry limitation towards the zero trust model? Like, are only specific industries, open
Mm-hmm,
towards
mm-hmm.
adopting this model? And if you could also shed a little bit light on the framework.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, that's another important question. So basically, there is no limit to an industry which can adapt zero trust. So what how organizations are adapting it is basically is based on the CISA model framework, the CISA framework, or the NIST, like bodies which is helping the organization to implement zero trust. But I would not say that it is restricted to one particular industry. As long as you have, so for example, if I am talking about a wireless industry, the wireless industry is mainly driven by the 3GPP protocols and the GSMA standards and the ITU, all those standard bodies. So if they do not have, made something like a zero trust framework as of now, they are still working on it. So as long as they are working on it, and and things are evolving, you can just start off, from the approach. But whatever, if you are having, network devices in your network, if you're having data in your network, if you have people who wants to access, or or you have the users who want to access those network devices, access the data, then zero trust is there for you. So there is no like a organization which you can, like or streamline that. Hey, this is only for zero trust. It depends on your assets basically. Yeah.
Okay, so if there's no limitation as per the industry, could you please tell us a little bit more about any good source available, like as a reference?
Yeah, yeah. So I like really the CISA resources, the CISA zero trust maturity model. You can refer that. It has good information. You can refer NIST for its like for their version of zero trust. It has also good details on it, and then you can uh, you know also develop your own framework for your own industry. So for example, if there is a 5G network which has its own limitation in terms of performance, in terms of how you can architect the solution, if there's a framework which suits your use case, you're free to adapt it. If you are a startup, you are working on your blockchain solution, you can also develop your own framework. But whatever framework that you are developing, or you are using, or any solutions you are procuring from the vendors, you have to just you know be focused on be mindful on three main aspects. One is that who are your users, what are the identity, like are they human users, machine users, system users, what are their users, how they are accessing the network, how the data is being flowing across those network devices, if it's an application, if it's a router, if it's a compute host, whatever. uh, and is there any policy that has been enforced, meaning that if I'm accessing this network element A, whether I'm allowed or not, who is checking it, how much I can access those network elements, whether I've been logged or not. So whatever uh, uh, network devices you are having and what users are accessing it, make sure that the confidentiality, integrity, and availability, non-repudiation, that CIAR part is being tracked, and it's being captured.
All right. I think we pretty much cleared and covered everything. I have this one last question for you, however, since you
Hmm.
mentioned about the Microsoft Zero model, and you also mentioned that it's one of the models you like. So,
Hmm.
can you tell us how does the Microsoft Zero model works in detail, and are there any specific products which you would like to shed some light on?
Yeah. So if you look at the Microsoft implementation of zero trust, it is simplified. It is easy to understand. Uh, in a sense that it has in architecture you have two set of users. One is the human users and one is the enterprise. So you have your users coming in, from your vendors or from your internal employees, and they are using maybe an enterprise device like a laptop to access those, access the network. Okay. So when the request has been coming inside the network, there is a checkpoint which checks that what policies are there for these number of users, whether they are uh, the request is coming from the known source or not. And once the request is entering from let's say a router towards the application workloads, then it has been also checked that whether these requests are being allowed or not, whether this request cannot span in any other workloads, so that you would need to have like a traffic segmentation, checkpoint here, that it should be coming to that particular zone which is allowed. And then once the network or once the request is being accessed, where the information is being stored, so you have to have, let's say, an encryption at rest, a data encryption at rest policy implemented and this and on those storage points. So you see that this is a simplified view in which I can able to identify all my assets. I can have like a policy which has been enforced on different checkpoints, as per my organizational, policy. And also I have some sort of governance model which dictates the policy, which means that who needs to access, what needs to be accessed, how much it needs to be accessed, so all those principles are there. So yeah, so that's why it's more simplified, and it is covering all the checkpoints what I have just explained. That is why I like their model. And the other, you mentioned about the technical, architecture components, that how do we enforce such, or how does Microsoft do it, how does any other organization, implement it, what are the technical, controls. So if you think from the earlier or from the first point, that you have to enforce identity mechanism, uh, identity control. So you have to have an active directory, you have to have an LDAP server, you have to rely on modern authentication mechanism, for example, SAML, auth. Uh, and then if you go to the right hand side, in terms of the data flow, you have to include a PKI, a public infrastructure, for your data, uh, security in transit, for that communication. So that is how you do it. And if you want to go like further deep into the app and the workloads, then you have to include endpoint detection tools to detect the malicious, uh, all the malicious calls and log the events. So that is how you architect the solution. Yeah.
That's great. Thank you so much. Uh, I think we are pretty much done with the questions. Anything you would like to conclude with, or just add upon?
Yeah, just one last thought that although it seems a lot of work, it needs a lot of effort to convince the the management to get the buy-in to enforce zero trust. But I would say start small, take an iterative approach and an incremental approach, like check about or assess the current security posture of your organization, where you stand in terms of data visibility, network controls, and do some threat assessment exercise, that where your threats are, whether those are protected or not. And then once you classify those threats, and then you can put up a case that, hey, in my current security posture, I'm spending this much amount of dollars, and still I cannot protect all. I'll not be able to protect all my assets. So here comes zero trust, and with this zero trust, you can do this one, two, three controls, and you will be better protected in terms of coverage for your attack vectors. So that is how you want to proceed, and then always do a demo, like do some sort of a red teaming exercise to make sure that you can have some data to convince your management that, hey, this is where I need to go, and this is how much I can save, and this is the way forward for you all. Okay, that is the one last thought. Yeah.
Great, great. I have to say this was quite an enlightening conversation. Uh, I also got to learn quite a couple of things. Thank you so much, Taha. I would also like to thank our audience here for seeing this webinar. Please stay tuned. We'll be having much more series and more MVPs, just like Mr. Taha Sajid. Thank you, Mr. Taha.
You're welcome, Uzma. And now I'll be getting my coffee. And I hope that you have enjoyed my discussion, and
I have.
wish you all best luck. Thank you very much.
Thank you.